I'm Merina, and I'm currently working as a cybersecurity engineer. And I've been in this field for the past almost about 10 years now, I guess. And currently, I'm working for a government organization, and I'm managing a team of cybersecurity analysts. All right, so that's about me. And let's start with our topic today. All right. So I believe you guys are second year, third year. I remember that's what I was informed. And I'm pretty sure most of you should be kind of aware of what cybersecurity is in short. Um, so if you think that cybersecurity is something to do with an organization, or when you go to a job, that's where it starts, that's not entirely true. So what cybersecurity is it starts everywhere. Whoever has a phone or a personal computer, your iPad, iPhones, anything. So everything comes under the cyber security. Say, all of you probably would have heard at least that your relatives or mom, dad, somebody is getting a call from some scamster saying that they're calling from a bank, and they give them their last 4 digits of their, say, credit card or debit card or account number, and let them give their passwords or send them an OTP, and at the end of the day, take their money. So what's happening in here, how cybersecurity plays its role in that place? So what happens is that somewhere some information got leaked either from the bank end or some other portal where you enter your credit card details. That portal is not secure enough. That company did not secure their data. So that's where the data breach happened. So that's where the cybersecurity plays the role. So if that would have been protected, that valuable information wouldn't have got leaked. And at the end, somebody who has no idea about cybersecurity is penalized for that. So every day, everything around us involves cybersecurity, and cybersecurity is something that's never gonna cease to exist. So it's going to be there for a very, very long time, because as long as computers, as long as the digital environment exists, cybersecurity is going to exist as well. So let's see. So my first slide talks about why endpoint security. So as I explained you just now, how vital it is for every single individual. So when you see it in a bigger picture, like in a corporation, in an IT environment, when a cybersecurity breach happens, so there is a business loss. There are millions of dollars or rupees lost at the end. So to protect that, we need endpoint security in place in every single organization. Let it be an organization of just 10 people, or let it be a 10,000 people organization. Every single organization needs that. All right, so let's see what exactly we can do in endpoint security, what kind of tools exist in it, and what could happen when you don't have endpoint security in place. All right, so we're going to talk about these topics today. So that's going to be first defining and identifying common endpoints in an information technology world, and the importance of endpoint security. And CIA, I'll explain you what it is. Some of you might already would have heard it, maybe in your syllabus probably. And identifying the common security threats and attacks, which calls for endpoint security. And then identifying the risk if not implementing the endpoint security in any information network. And finally, we'll talk about the ways to improve the effectiveness of endpoint security, because it's not a one-day job that you implement a tool and then it'll take care of you for the rest of the time. No, that's not the case. So it's about improving every single day how it's going to work. All right, so let's talk about the common endpoint devices. So endpoint device, when you say that, it involves every single electronic machines that exist, or any gadget that's going to exist in your network. So that starts from a mobile phone that your worker is going to have in their hand with their email configured in it. So email is going to have lots and lots of information that's going to come in and go out. So you will have to secure your mobile devices as well. And from there on, it goes on to the desktops, laptops, servers, data centers, and all the way through your firewall servers. Everything comes under this electronic machines and gadgets. And in the recent times, the mobile device, people who work from their mobile devices has increased. So we have dedicated cybersecurity tools managing just the mobile devices alone. And we will have, a dedicated team of, say, 10 people just there monitoring all the mobile devices that is provided by the organization, so that no data breach happens there as well. They will check for the vulnerabilities, they'll check for their security risk on those, and also all the features provided in that, they will secure all those things. And as I said, so it includes all the endpoint. When you say endpoint, that's the end point of the business, where the last point happens. And that involves your desktops, laptops, tablets, iPads, notepads, mobile phones, and other uh, privately owned devices as well. And our goal in short here is going to be to deliver the service to all the endpoint devices uninterruptedly. So say I have a worker, for example, he's into HR and he manages all the salary related items. And say my business is in Bangalore, but that person sits in, say, Chennai. And that person, when he's working on his laptop, he should not feel any hindrance, so that the salary is distributed to all my employees wherever they are present. So it should be, he should feel like whatever he's accessing, all the tools he's accessing, it should feel like it's right there on his machine, though it is hosted on the cloud. So all the tools he's going to be accessing from cloud, he's going to be accessing from the internet, he's going to be connecting to a machine in Bangalore and getting all the information. So all these should be seamless. So to make it seamless, the cybersecurity world should be secure as well. So any point anything goes bad and the connection drops, and it's going to hit my business. So let's see how. Okay, so let's talk about the importance of having endpoint security in the environment. So as I said earlier, endpoint means any client machine, that is desktops, laptops, to any kind of server where say my entire data is going to be stored, like a data center, or if it's going to be a file server where all the files are stored for my users to access. It's not going to be sitting on one single machine. There are going to be multiple servers. My email service is going to be there, which is going to handle all my emails. So a web server is going to be there, which handles all my internally hosted websites that all the users are going to use. So it's going to be all sitting on servers, and the clients are the ones who are going to access all those servers as well. So I'll have to protect both these, not just the servers. I'll have to secure the client end as well. And how do I do that? There are multiple tools in the environment that I can leverage to make sure that all the important things are protected. And I'll have to also make sure that all the resources in my environment, when I say resources, it includes the devices and also the people working for the environment. So they have the availability, they have the privacy, integrity, reliability, and many other business goals that are involved in a business. And what kind of things that we are going to protect them from. So cybersecurity, again, is not just limited to your digital world. It also involves your external world as well, so your physical world outside. Say I have a laptop that I have all my important files in it. Say I'm traveling from Bangalore to Mumbai, and on the way I just leave my laptop unattended. Somebody is going to steal it, obviously. So that's where my cybersecurity breach in the physical world happens. So at that point, what kind of advices we give to the users? They'll have to put a safety lock in their laptops. They'll have to have multiple tools installed on the laptop so that even if somebody tries to break into the machine, they'll not be able to. And we have a special feature in my own organization that I'm currently working on, where if at all a user reports that a machine has been lost, or he is not able to find it, we will, within the next 5 minutes, use a tool, an endpoint security tool, and will completely wipe everything on the laptop, so that we don't worry about the data much. We worry about securing the information from getting leaked. So that's how important it is to secure in the physical world as well. And next comes all your digital world threats, that is viruses, worms, Trojan, ransomware, and malware, spywares, any zero-day attacks, that is zero-day in the sense, any attack that has been just created. So I'm an attacker and I've just created a virus. So that virus is going to be a zero-day attack. And the ultimate goal for all these is to protect the business profit so that I don't lose any money in the business. That is also the important aspect of cybersecurity. And then, so here you have a screen where it explains what kind of tools are involved in the cybersecurity world. So this entire thing you can call a cybersecurity world, but when you see in depth, there are different things, and almost most of these has a team of its own managing all these tools. There are, say, if I take application control, I can name like 5 to 6 tools, separate individual tools by different companies, dedicatedly providing support for that, like Symantec, Microsoft, even McAfee. So every single AV is going to provide you application control. Application control in the sense like, say, I have a work machine and I have all my business tools installed on it, and suddenly I want to watch some movies, and I plan to install something called uTorrent, which is an illegal software to download pirated movies. When I do that, I'm going to introduce my machine. I'm going to make it vulnerable to attackers to enter into my machine and take information off of it. So how do I control from end user doing it? So I'm a cybersecurity professional, so I would know that something like that shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't be installing anything on my machine, but an end user with very, very minimal cybersecurity awareness wouldn't know that. And day in and day out, we do see people actually doing that, using a work machine for their personal use, like installing games, watching movies, downloading pirated softwares. So how do we stop that? We use the application control. So application control, we put some rules stating that only these certain application you can install, but not anything else. That's completely going to be a complete lockdown of the machine. So even when they try to download an application, it's going to give you a pop-up saying that no, you will not be allowed to install this. If you still think that this is required, you will have to go reach out to your cybersecurity team. So that's going to come to us, and when we look at it, we see that it's nothing related to the business. We're going to say, sorry, you can't do that. And so when you say port control, there are firewall applications that you can use where you can control any kind of unauthorized entries through the port. So any kind of network related communication that happens through a port. So say I'm sitting here and I want to hack something into your college. I'll have to target your college infrastructure, and I'll have to see how which point I can enter into the college. So for that, that point is going to be a port through which I'm going to infiltrate through the firewall, and I'm going to check what all applications is installed in the machine and what kind of vulnerabilities are available for those softwares. And using that vulnerability, I'm going to break into the machines and I'm going to enter into the organization. So controlling your ports is very, very important. And alerts and monitoring tools, there are specific tools for that, like SCOM tools. And that tool, what it does is, when there is something happens, when say a person is doing a port scanning is something like you check all the ports, thousands of ports there, and you check all of it and see what are the ports are open at the moment for them to enter through. And this alerts and monitoring will tell me that there is an alert, this machine, there is somebody scanning the ports, and immediately the team will go there, and they will go there in the sense of not physically, they will be logging into the machine and see what's happening in the machine and through which IP the attack is coming from. If it is an external IP that is not related to the business, they're going to block it right away, so that we do not give the attacker any time to go any further than the port scanning. And and data encryption, when you say data encryption, sometimes when you log into your machine, we would put the BitLocker, so that what it does is it encrypts all your data in the machine. So only when you put the BitLocker key, then it opens up the machine for you. So an attacker, when he tries to log in, he puts the wrong key there, the entire data is lost. They will not be allowed into the machine any further than that. So as such, we have USB security, wireless security, personal firewall, client self-defense, and all these stuff. And then we come to the CIA, the main point of cybersecurity. So what is CIA? CIA is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So what is confidentiality? Confidentiality is nothing but your information, whatever data you have is encrypted. Say you guys use WhatsApp. So when you send a message from your phone to your friend's phone, WhatsApp says that it's encrypted. What it means that nobody else can read your message apart from you and the person that is intended to go. So that's what this confidentiality is. Whatever you send to and fro is confidential only to the persons involved and nobody else. And then comes the integrity. So once again, if I take the example of WhatsApp, when you send a message from your phone to your friend's phone, that message should go as it is to your friend's phone. If somebody attacks in the middle, say when there is not encryption, for example. So when there is no encryption, a person can intercept that message, alter it, and send it to your friend's phone, and they will think that it actually came from a friend. So he trusts it. Say, for example, you ask him for a card number or some detail, some sensitive information, say even his email, phone number, any information, anything, any personally identifiable information. And he thinks that it is you who's asking it. So he replies back with information, and the person in the middle able to read that and steal that information. So that's where integrity comes. So the integrity, the tools make sure what is being sent is sent on whole and it is not altered. And then comes the availability. So availability means, this availability mainly concerns the business environment, not your end machines, your personal machines. So availability in the sense, say you access Amazon website. So when you access it, you expect it to open. So if it says the server is down or something like that, then you get furious. And when you see that happening for a week, eventually what you're going to do, you're going to move to some other website, say Flipkart, for instance. So what's happening there? Amazon is losing their business. So it is their primary thing to make sure the availability is provided all the time. So this is the main part of cybersecurity. So cybersecurity tools make sure all these three things are maintained: the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability. So this is an example of what CIA is actually about. So what's happening here is this person, Iman, is sending an information, bank related stuff, to the person called Sandy. Say Sandy is working in the bank and they have requested for some of the details like bank name, their account name and account number, and then there is going to be some kind of money transfer going to happen, say instance. So he's sending the information through email to Sandy, but that email transcription is not encrypted. So what's happening there? There is going to be a man in the middle attack, and the person is going to read that information. And what he's going to do, he's going to change the bank's name, he's going to change the account name and the account number. So it looks like it has gone from Iman, but actually it has gone from somebody else, and the money is going to be transferred to this person instead of Iman. There is going to be a theft happening in the cloud. So here, now we talk about the confidentiality. So when this person tries to listen, he knows that this conversation is happening. He tries to intercept into it and he tries to read it through, but whatever packets are being sent, all the information inside it is only numbers, some random numbers and symbols like you see here. Why that's happening? That's because that information is encrypted, and Sandy here is going to have a key to that encrypted information, and Iman also has a key through which he has encrypted the information. So he encrypts it, sends it to Sandy. So the encryption actually happens in the backend with the cybersecurity tools. Iman and Sandy are not professionals who's going to sit and encrypt and decrypt. It's all in the back end of their tools. So when they what they are doing here is just sending an email and receiving an email, but that email is already encrypted and it is going to be get decrypted when it goes to Sandy. And when Sandy is going to reply back, that again is going to be encrypted and decrypted at Iman's end. So that's where the confidentiality comes. It simply means that the information is encrypted. And then comes the integrity. So as you can see, he changed the bank name, the account name and number. So which Sandy is not aware of. So the tools make sure this change does not happen, or when the tool notices any kind of changes happening during the transfer, then we get alerted. So that's where the integrity comes. And again, when you talk about data integrity, there is another part of the integrity as well. So in the example, we saw a person is sending an email and it's going to some other person. But what if the person who's sending the email is not Iman, but actually a hacker who got Iman's username and password, and he is actually on the machine and he's sending an email, which is obviously going to get encrypted and decrypted. There is no tool that's going to check whether the person, the physical person sitting there, is a valid user or not. How do you avoid that in the environment? You introduce the checks of multi-factor authentication. So you might have already used it in your day-to-day life, like when you log into Gmail, sometimes it sends you multi-factor authentication like an OTP to your phone, and you'll have to type in that OTP, or it sends you some kind of a code which you'll have to enter. This is a multi-factor authentication. So you're actually going to log into your laptop or desktop, but the authentication is happening on your phone, which sends your OTP and all those things, so that it makes sure the person who has the desktop also has the phone. So the it is authenticating both from your phone and from your laptop or desktop. So in an office environment, we use something like an MD5 hashing or a secure hash algorithm, a SHA algorithm, or RSA key fob. As you can see, the person who's holding it in here, it's going to have some 6 digits number. So when he tries to log into the machine, the machine is going to ask for the number that's appearing on the key fob, which will be there only with the user. So there is another thing. If somebody steals the key fob, then the user is supposed to immediately call the company and inform that their key fob is they lost it, and we immediately lock the key fob so that using that key fob nobody will be able to log in. So there are multiple things that you can do to make sure your data is secure. And then, as I said, the availability. So availability simply means your site is available to all the end users. Your workers are able to access all your tools and able to use it all the time. So that's what availability, as the name sounds, simply means. And then now we are talking about what's happening in the world of security threats. In the recent times, we have seen an increase in the security threats. Why? Because all the digital applications, even the attacking tools are available nowadays online very easily. Everybody has access to a digital world. Like everybody has a phone, everybody has a laptop, desktop, almost everybody. And when you go to YouTube and you Google and search for videos like how to hack this and that, though you will end up in getting into some trouble if you actually do that, there are tutorials even for that, and they teach you all the malicious stuff that you can do. But I have known people who have done that and got into huge trouble. So that's why we are seeing an increase of cybersecurity events in the recent times. So everybody who wants to, steal information or steal some money off of users' banks, they attack the machines of a business environment or even the personal machines. And what kind of attacks that you see in a day-to-day life? You can see something called denial of service attack, ransomware attack, zero-day brute force, distributed DOS, that is a distributed denial of service attack, malware attack, adware, spyware, Trojan, worms, and lots of other things. So when you say denial of service is something like, say, again, let's take the example of Amazon. Let's say Amazon has only one machine in their environment, just for the sake of it. And I'm sending continuous request from my machine to Amazon. It's something called a ping request that you're going to send continuously to Amazon. So Amazon will be only talking to my machine constantly, as constant as possible. At, and at the end of the day, what's going to happen? Anybody else tries to access it, they're not going to able to visit the site, because I'm making sure nobody else access the site apart from me. I just want to make sure they lose some business over that. So that's what denial of service attack means. And a ransomware is something like when you send an email or a virus onto your machine, and somebody encrypts all your important files and stuff, and they will simply put up a Word document in your environment, and the Word document will simply say that you'll have to give some amount of money, say $1,000, and then only you'll be able to get all your informations back. So say in an environment like IT, and the business gets affected with their important documents, which they don't have a backup of, gets encrypted by this ransomware. Sometimes they end up paying the money, but what's going to happen next is that their environment is going to be continuously attacked further, because they know this person will be paying money if we threaten them. So when something like this happens, uh, what you're supposed to do in future is take backup of your data, keep it somewhere else as well apart from that particular machine, and never ever give the ransom to the people who are sending all these threats or viruses. And then comes the zero-day attacks. Zero-day attacks, as I said, is something like I have created a virus just today and I have let it go in the environment. So that's going to be a zero-day attack. No AV is going to know about that particular algorithm that I've created. that they will be able to capture it when I send it across in the environment. And then comes the brute force attack. Brute force is something like my aim is only to attack, say, Amazon, and I don't want to attack any other sites, and I'm going to attack that Amazon website for continuously for a week. So that is what's called a brute force attack, that I'm going to continuously keep attacking them. And then comes the distributed denial of service. So denial of services say I'm attacking only with my machine. Distributed denial of service is something like I have 10 people attacking that same site at the same time. That's going to be the distributed denial of service attack. And then comes the malware. Malware is something like when you install an application or something, and virus gets attached along with that, and it's going to try to enter into your machine. That's called a malware. It infects your machine, it deletes your files, it alters your files, like adding a viral code to it to make it do something else that the malware wants it to do. And adwares is very common when you accidentally download stuff, when you accidentally make changes to your browser, and it's going to show ads all over your machine. And then comes spyware. Spyware is something like it's going to spy on your machine. It can see what kind of passwords that you're going to enter on your machine. And it's say when you're in a particular site, like a bank website, you're going to put in your username and password. The spyware will be able to take it. And if you're in any other browser, like your other information, it can steal that. So that's called a spyware. And then comes the Trojan. Trojan is something like when you install, say, a pirated software or a game, you think that you're downloading the game. The name is going to tell the name of the game, but at the end of the day, you realize that no, that's not the case. That's going to be a virus that's going to enter into your machine through the Trojan. So Trojan is something that looks legit, but inside it packs a virus. And then comes worms. Worms are something that goes through your entire machine system. It can go all over your in your environment. Say my machine is infected, can continue affecting multiple machines as it goes through the connected networks. So there are many viruses like this, but this is the major category of it. All right, and then next, let's see what happens when an intruder is able to compromise just one server. What happens then? So if you can see, it says here the DMZ segment. DMZ is demilitarized zone. That means that particular server is the internet facing server. It's not an internal machine which you will not be able to access from the internet. But this particular DNS server is actually the internet facing server. So anybody from the internet can access that particular server. And here what's happening, an attacker has attacked it, and they have taken the information from the DNS server through which they will be able to propagate through all the other machine in the environment. So all these here that you see are going to be the end user machines, who are end workers who are doing their day-to-day job. So the attacker will be able to enter to their machines and take information from each of this machine. And what you see here on top is my data center. Data center are servers primarily, and it's going to have every single information that has been stored. Say, for example, if it's a bank environment, it's going to have all my users' details, their account numbers, how much money they have, who's the person who owns each of this account. All those information is going to be stored in here, and the attacker will be able to leverage that as well. So that's what happens when you don't miss to even save one single machine or one single server. The attack can propagate through that. And what you see here burning is a firewall. So yeah, and the DMZ machine is outside the firewall, and that's why they're able to access it. And then comes your untrusted networks. So it talks about people who are end users who are not very aware of these kind of attacks. They don't know what exactly is happening. So they receive an email saying that, say, your salary statement, there will be an attachment with it. It says it's PDF, but it will actually be a exe file. So they think that it's our salary statement. So let's open it. They click on it. They don't check the sender. They don't check whether it is internal email or external email. Click on the exe. It's going to immediately execute, and it's going to infect the entire machine. So that's what happens. So here we are talking about the different kinds of attacks. We already spoke about the denial of service, and we already spoke about the man in the middle of attack and the Trojan horse. Trojan horse is something like, as I said, it looks like a legitimate application, but inside there will be viral files or any kind of code, any kind of scripts that's going to be inside. And this is packet sniffing. So packet sniffing is again kind of like the port scanner that I spoke about. Port scanner checks for your ports. The packet sniffers is going to check for every single packet is going to going across the network. So what information is going to be there in a packet? It's going to have your IP address. It's going to have your application detail from where the packet is originated from. It's going to have the operating system that you're running on the machine. So what an attacker is going to do with these information, IP address, application, and the operating system, it's very crucial. Why? Because every single operating system has vulnerabilities in it. Every application has vulnerability in it. So the moment they gets to know what is running on the machine, their hacking becomes much more simpler. They're going to just focus on that particular operating system. Say Windows 10 has various vulnerabilities in it. So an attacker knows it's a Windows 10 machine. He's going to look only for the attacks that he can do on a Windows 10 machine. What kind of vulnerabilities are available? Through that, he will start attacking and he will be able to infiltrate. So that's what a packet sniffer does. So there are many tools for all these attacks: the Trojan horse attack, packet sniffer, DDoS, man in the middle, all these. And then these are other kinds of threats that exist. Zero-day spoofing. Spoofing is something like, say, somebody is receiving an email from their bank, but the name says their bank. But when you hover over it, you will be able to see that actually the email address is not from the bank, but it's somebody else, some other hacker. But how many of us actually check the email address, who it is actually from? But eventually we should all be checking that, because the world is at a place where everybody is being attacked nowadays. So that is called a spoofing. They have actually spoofed the name of the bank, but they have sent a malicious email. If you're going to reply to that, you're going to reply to the attacker. And password exploitation. So something like, again, let's say example of the bank. So you receive an email from your bank with a link stating that you'll have to make some changes to your account. It's going to be the last date to make the changes. You're going to panic. You're going to click on the link. When you click on the link, it'll show a page which will look like exactly like your bank, but it's going to ask for your username and password when you type it in. But it's not going to be your bank's page, but it's going to be a page that was created by the hacker. And now the hacker has the password and username for this particular user in that bank. And that's going to make it very easy for him to steal the money off of that particular user's account. And then comes the port scanning, which we already spoke about. And then social engineering. Social engineering is something like you receive any kind of emails from these attackers, or even your, say, Instagram or Facebook messages that you receive, something like, they tell that they're from a legitimate source, but they're not. They're actually an attacker, and you fall for it. They send some links, they send some files, and you click on it, and your machine gets infected. These are all called social engineering attacks. And in the corporate world, the social engineering mostly happens through emails. Okay, and then let's come to all the other exposed networks. What happens in the environment and when the security is not being implemented? So something like an unauthorized access to the endpoints could happen. So anybody can access a laptop or a desktop. And unplanned downtime, like the example I gave you for Amazon, when you access it, if somebody has attacked it, it's going to be down. You will not be able to access it. And sensitive data theft, like in the example of bank. So as somebody can infiltrate there, they will be able to steal their bank information, their passwords, their account details, and all those. And high rate of valuable data loss to the business as a whole. So when you talk about business, the business could have key informations stored in their machines. If that is stolen, that's going to create a huge loss in their environment. And then talk about reduced income for all the employees. So in the example that I gave between Amazon and Flipkart, when Amazon is down, you're going to go to Flipkart. So what's happening in Amazon, and the business is less. When the business goes down, eventually the employees are going to be paid less. And if it continues for a month or two continuously, the server is down or the server gets attacked, your information is being lost in that particular website, nobody is going to visit it, and at the end of the day the business is going to fail. So that's what's ultimately going to happen when you don't have correct security tools installed in your environment. And then as we explained, these are all different types of tools that you can use in the environment to secure and make sure none of these happens in the environment. And the very primary thing to do, not only your tools are going to help, but user awareness is what's going to help you from your end users not falling prey to any of these attacks. Like when they receive an email, they should know what all the things to check. They'll have to check who the sender is. If the email looks legit, sometimes, or not sometimes, many times the email doesn't even look like a business email. It looks like somebody from their Gmail typed it in and sent it. It looks like that. I've seen thousands of such emails, and they'll have to make sure the integrity of the email, and they'll have to check the sender, and they'll have to check whether it is an internal email or if it came from external. If it has got any kind of a link, they'll have to just hover over it and check what URL that is, which site it leads to before even clicking on it. If they have any attachments, they'll have to check whether the attachment is actually what they think it is or if it is something else. So they'll have to make sure they check all these things, or if they're still in doubt, they'll have to go back to the person whom they actually think the email should be coming from, and reach out to them and make sure that email is actually legit. They should never respond to any kind of phishing emails, to make sure the phishing attack doesn't propagate further. So user awareness is very important, and in business world, we train the users like almost every month, and we create this mock drills of phishing attacks to check how many users are actually falling for all those stuff. If you click on the link and immediately we get an alert that this person actually fell for the phishing email. So what we do, we double their training for that particular person to make sure this does not repeat again. So that's what the user awareness is all about. And then comes the enforcement of acceptable use policy. This is about the policy that is put across from CEO level to a security guard level. Every single person should know what they should be doing, what they should not be doing in an environment. Say a security guard should know a gate should not be left unattended at any point of time. He should not leave the place without getting a replacement for him. So that's just an example to make sure that entire premises is secure. So everybody should know what they're supposed to do. And then comes about practice least privilege access on endpoints. So simply, when we talk about, there are going to be multiple places in the environment, multiple departments. Say there is going to be an HR department, there is going to be cybersecurity team. So a file that the HR is going to need, say all the employees' salary information is stored on a file on a machine. That particular machine is required only for the HR team and not for any other team. So what we do, we make sure that particular machine is information is accessible only to the HR team and not the entire team in the environment. So what we are doing here, when the attack happens on this machine in here, the information is still going to be safe on here because this machine cannot connect to this machine to access any kind of information. So we make sure all the data is segregated into department wise, and only those people are given access to modify, edit, or view those files. And then we talk about the scheduled regular software updates on all the endpoints. So in your phone, you'll have lots of apps where at least once in a week, you will see that there's an update. You'll have to update it once in a while. So what that update actually is doing in the back end is that it not only improves the application, how it works, the speed, but it is actually is fixing the bugs on the application, the vulnerabilities on the application as well. Similarly, this applies to all the application in your machine as well. Say, for example, a Windows 10 machine, the operating system gets updates every week. Every Tuesday, they release patches. So every week, they literally check for vulnerabilities. There are lots of applications running in a Windows 10 machine, inbuilt and external. So they check all these and see what are the vulnerabilities available, and they patch it every week to make sure these kind of attack doesn't happen. So what happens when a Windows 10 machine keeps getting attacked? Eventually, you're going to go to a different vendor, like an iOS device, an Apple device, a Mac device. You're going to switch to it. So that's what they don't want to happen. So they rigorously work in the background to make sure all the vulnerabilities are patched. And you should be doing the same thing on your end machine as well, in your desktops or laptops. You'll have to make sure every single application that you use, you'll have to keep it updated. Similarly, in the business environment, we have a dedicated team who checks all the softwares that's available to all the users, and we regularly patch it as well. And then talks about disable unused services on all endpoints. So this again talks about something like application control. So when you have multiple hundreds of applications, what it means is you're going to have hundreds of vulnerability as well. So a person who's working on that machine, if he is going to only access 10 of those applications, then there is literally no need for me to have the rest of the 90 applications on that machine. So what do? I eliminate all those 90 applications from that machine. I don't even install it in there, and I install only on these 10 applications. So this makes my life easier to manage it and make sure I update it properly as well. And here, what you're seeing is a typical port scan result and a typical packet sniffing results. So the port scan result, what it shows is it shows the port numbers, what's available, and the protocol on which that port number is running on, and what's the state of the port, whether it is listening or it's open or it's established. These are the states of the ports. And they're going to look mainly for the listening ports. So that means that port is open and they can go through it. So these are all the service that's running on that particular port. There are dedicated ports for dedicated services. For example, your internet happens on TCP/80 port, which is the HTTP port. And here you see the packet sniffing result, where it shows all the information about your OS, the applications that you're running, what version it is running on, all this information is going to be there. And now we talk about installing all the endpoint protection tools that you can install. You can install AV tools, you can install EDR tools, and ATP tools, data loss tools, DLP tools, your email security tools, firewall tools. There are literally hundreds of endpoint protection tools that you have for all these things to be secure. And then we talk about placing all the endpoints in position where intruders cannot reach them. This again talks about your physical world, where you secure your environment through controlled doors. That is, any doors, you cannot just walk into an office. It's going to be locked by the security system. You're going to need access cards to enter those doors, and you have surveillance cameras, security agents who are going to check your ID cards if that matches with you, and then only you're going to be let in. So, and then we talk about reputable antivirus softwares. We have multiple antivirus softwares currently. Currently, what I'm working on is Microsoft Defender, which is going to control everything in the Windows world. And then ensuring that the host-based firewall program is always active on all the network adapters on the endpoint. Firewall is the first breach that could happen in your environment, that is through the network. So firewall protects that network. That's the first point of contact for your environment. And we talk about end users should practice the use of lengthy and complex passwords and regular change of passwords. Why this is happening? So when you put in your password, say for your bank account, and you type in your name and you add in your date of birth. This is pretty common for very many people to use it. Sometimes it is easier for the old folks to remember passwords, because they're going to have to remember so many passwords that they log in. But the problem here is we have tools that can actually run through an algorithm to find out what password you have. And these kind of names, numbers, date of birth, or regularly used expressions are the first thing that it's going to check. And when that checks it, the password can be cracked, say, for example, within an hour. But when you keep a complex password, which is going to have numbers, letters, uppercase, lowercase, and special characters, if you're going to have a password like this, it's going to take years and years to crack that. That's going to take a long time when they take it through that kind of algorithm, where it's going to match for regularly used passwords. And also, still, even though when you have a complex passwords, you will have to change it regularly, say once in a month or once quarterly. In an office environment, we force the users to change their passwords every 90 days to make sure their details are safe. And they cannot use the same old password once again. They'll have to definitely change it. They cannot repeat the passwords. Okay, so I think we have almost reached the end of the session. So basically, we spoke about the requirement of endpoint security, what kind of tools you can use, and what happens when you don't use it. And then at the end of the day, we spoke about what kind of user education you can do in the physical world, how to secure your environment as well. And that is the end of the session. So you have any questions?